Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some severe storms which are currently rolling through parts of the southeast where we already have a tornado watch and severe thunderstorm watch in place with a couple tornado warnings scattered throughout parts of the Carolinas and Georgia. We're also going to be talking about later today that threat which is going to be moving into the Tennessee Valley, and then for tomorrow the threat that's going to be in the southeast, and then eventually even for the day after, we might even have some lingering storms along the East Coast. So we're going to be talking about all of that and more, and giving you some live updates on what we're currently seeing and expecting with these storms. And again, we have an enhanced risk already out for a widespread area over the next 2 days. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. Some red flag warnings in Northern California and in southern New Mexico. Winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up for parts of Colorado and Wyoming, with some frost advisories scattered throughout southern Nebraska. Wind advisories in effect for Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, as well as some severe thunderstorm watches in that pink color for parts of Alabama and Mississippi, with some tornado watches currently in effect for central and northern Georgia in the yellow. And then those are flash flood warnings in effect in that dark red, and then those kind of dots there where you have some bright red popping up. That's where we actually have tornado warnings currently in effect for tornadoes that are currently on the ground. Yesterday we had a high temperature in Zapata, Texas, where they got up to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low temperature was in Bridgeport, California, where they got down to 17 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest precipitation report was 4.61 inches in San Saba, Texas, and again, they got over 4 inches of rainfall in those areas. And the highest snowfall report was 7 miles southeast of Ulm, Montana, where they got 1 inch of reported snowfall, and a lot more snowfall has been reported, especially through this corridor from southern Wyoming to southern Colorado, especially in the higher elevations. We've already had some reports over 4 inches in those areas. So here's the current look at the radar, and I'm recording this right at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and this is probably my video is probably gonna be out within another 20 to 30 minutes of me recording this. So of course, check your local National Weather Service or any radar app that you might have on your phone or computer, and check the current radar, the updated radar, because it'll definitely look different from what I'm showing you right now. This is just what's provided to me as of right now, but of course we know that these things change very, very rapidly. So you can see where we have that tornado threat going just south of Charlotte. So some big metro areas, again, like Charlotte, North Carolina, potentially are going to be impacted with the threat of tornadoes, especially just to the south of that city is where we currently have a tornado warning in place. And we also have one, I believe, just north of Athens, Georgia. So two big, very big cities in the southeast being impacted with the threat of tornadoes. You can see the general risk of high amounts of intensity and wind with some of these storms in northern Georgia, just north of Atlanta there. And then you can also see a few storms starting to set up, and these are going to continue to move to the south and east and continue to grow. And those are just starting to pop up just north of Birmingham and south of Huntsville. We also have a few more storms through parts of eastern Tennessee. Those are going to move into the higher elevations of eastern Tennessee. Those actually might break up. So that's the one supercell complex that looks like it might actually die out. And we're just starting to see these ones ramp up in eastern North Carolina as well. And for that reason, we have a tornado watch currently in effect, and that it covers much of central Georgia and also into eastern Alabama as well, where you can see that from anywhere from about Rome, Georgia, down to Montgomery, Alabama, we have some of those the tornado watches currently in effect due to those thunderstorms. We have a moderate risk of tornadoes, a moderate risk of EF2 plus tornadoes, a moderate risk of severe wind, a low risk of 74 mile per hour plus wind, a low risk of severe hail, and a low risk of 2-inch plus hail. So the main threats are going to be tornadoes and that high wind with these storms. This was issued around 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be valid until about 4 p.m. Eastern time today and this afternoon. So you can see a wide swath of central and northern Georgia as well as east central Alabama impacted with this tornado watch. Here's what this mesoscale discussion looks like for eastern North Carolina. They're saying saying that there is a 40% chance that they issue either a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch in eastern North Carolina. This was issued just a few minutes from when I'm recording this. It was issued right around 12:35 p.m. Eastern time, and it's valid until 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. And they are talking about potentially developing thunderstorms, which we just showed you on the radar, that could pose a threat in this area over the next few hours. And again, that is valid for until 2:30 p.m. Today. And then here is for parts of southern Alabama. And by the way, they just issued that severe thunderstorm watch in Alabama, so I don't have the details on that. They still didn't issue a mesoscale discussion on that one, so I don't really have anything prepared for that. But they did issue a severe thunderstorm watch there nonetheless. We do have that mesoscale discussion. In fact, for southern Alabama, they say there's a 60% chance of a watch being extended into this area. They issued this around 10:38 a.m. Central Daylight Time, and that's going to be valid until 2:15 p.m. And they're talking about potentially some more storms, which are currently right around here. These are going to be continuing to head to the south, and those could develop some damaging winds and hail along with that. So definitely multiple threats all across the southeast where we are dealing with those thunderstorm threats, and we're going to be talking about that more later on in today's video. So here's what the day one outlook looks like, and they updated this recently as well. They extended that slight risk into the southeast. Originally, this was just a marginal risk yesterday. This morning, they added a slight risk further to the west into Georgia and Alabama, and then just a few minutes ago, they extended this into the Carolinas and also, I believe, into Mississippi as well. So this is a much larger slight risk now for the southeast. They also extended this enhanced risk for parts of northeastern Texas, Oklahoma, also into parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois, where we have an enhanced risk. Originally, this was also a much smaller region, and then recently they did update this and issue a much larger area of enhanced risk, where we have that highest risk of severe weather. This is for today. Here's for tomorrow, and you can see that we have a slight risk which covers much of the southeastern United States and the Tennessee Valley. This is for tomorrow, and then we even have a huge area of enhanced risk over parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. And I would not be surprised at all, especially with what we're getting with some of these models, especially the NAM model, if we might see even a moderate risk get issued over some of these areas. And again, I think there's probably a 30% chance that happens. I think it's more likely that they stay in an enhanced, but again, I don't want to rule that out, especially because these storms have been overperforming. We were not expecting anything really too significant for today at all. We were just expecting a few pop-up thunderstorms this afternoon, but it really intensified much quicker and much more than what we were expecting. And you're seeing the Storm Prediction Center and many other forecasters starting to adjust to that new update. And then here is for Tuesday, and we also have a risk for pretty much that same area, especially Tuesday morning in parts of the Tennessee Valley and into parts of the southeast. So that's generally what we're dealing with. This is that slight risk area, and you can see that it covers again much of the southeastern United States. So here's what the NAM model is showing, and you can see that we have many of those thunderstorms. Really, what you want to be paying attention to is what's happening in southern Missouri, because this is what's going to be becoming your bigger complex of thunderstorms. And you can already see that the NAM model is picking up on some of those thunderstorms in the Carolinas and Georgia. Eventually, they will pass by to the south. So this is by later this afternoon, or right around 7 p.m. Central Time. And again, those thunderstorms still further to the west. They will start to really ramp up a little bit, but it's still not, it's not too impressive on the radar just yet. So this is around 10 p.m. Central Time tonight. Here's by 1 a.m. Central Time, and you're starting to see those thunderstorms develop a little bit more into the Tennessee Valley and also into the Ozarks as well. And we're starting to see a little bit more heavy precipitation and maybe even a few areas of hail and damaging winds along with that. If we continue this forward, here's by 4 a.m. Central Time today or tomorrow, and we actually have some more of those thunderstorms rolling through western Tennessee, even into parts of Missouri and Arkansas as well. And then let's continue this forward a little bit more. Here's by 7 in the morning. Here's by right around 10 in the morning Central Time, 11 Eastern. And we're dealing with these storms really dying out by this point. Not as strong as they were back through western Tennessee, northern Arkansas, and southern Missouri. Now, let's start looking at the southeast a little bit more, because by tomorrow afternoon, this is all going to just refuel, and we're going to go back into more of a pattern of stronger storms. So you can see for the northern halves of Georgia and Alabama, we have some of those storms riding up through those areas. Now what we want to see, or what we want to pay attention to, is this line of storminess that's just going to be passing through Louisiana and Mississippi and eventually heading to the south and to the east. This is a very robust, potentially, line of storms that we're dealing with, and it's because we have CAPE values, convective available potential energy, that's around 4 to 5,000 joules per kilogram, or even more than that, which is way above the normal and the average. So that is what's going to be fueling these storms. We have a really unstable atmosphere, an unstable atmosphere, and we have a very high dew points, near 75-degree dew points. So very, very warm, and also the temperatures, again, will be very, very warm, around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of these ingredients coming together, and you can really tell why we're dealing with a heightened risk of severe weather for especially tomorrow and also into this afternoon. So you see all these storms rolling into the Tennessee Valley and into the southeast. These are going to continue to expand. So now you're going through some big cities like Nashville and Huntsville, Alabama. So all of these areas getting hit with this potential line of storms, which goes right here. It does look like a fairly powerful storm, especially on the leading edge of this, where we might be dealing with the bulk of the wind gusts and wind damage. So you might want to pay attention to that. These are going to be straight line wind damage type of events, especially if you live in the Tennessee Valley and parts of northern Alabama and northern Mississippi. With this line of storms, you might want to tie down any loose furniture that's going to be outside, because we could be seeing gusts at times as that's rolling through of excess of 60 miles per hour or even 70 miles per hour at times. So we really do want to pay attention to that, and that could cause some big issues, especially with things being blown around as that storm is heading through. So this is by late on Tuesday, so around 7 or 8 o'clock on Tuesday. And then as we continue this forward a little bit more, you're going to see that by right around 10 or 11 o'clock on Tuesday, we're still dealing with, in the afternoon, 10 or 11 o'clock in the evening, we're dealing with still some more of these storms through northern Alabama, northern Georgia, even into upstate South Carolina, and maybe even moving through North Carolina as well. Those are going to continue to head to the east. They are still fairly intense by this point as they're heading to central Georgia and central South Carolina, but you can definitely tell that they are weakening. And then eventually that front, as it's heading towards the coast, as you're getting that marine layer of air to really have its effects, it is weakening, and finally the storm system really will come to a close. So here's what the max temperatures, or the high temperatures for today are looking like, and this is around 3 or 4 p.m. Central Time today, what the temperatures are expected to look like, and you're dealing with temperatures between 75 and 80, especially over this area right here. So for today, we have definitely temperatures warm enough to support these storms. If you look at for tomorrow in the southeast, again, right around 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central Time, when usually your peak temperatures are, you can see that we have 80s due to this warm front. By the way, we have a little cold front, not too significant, but it is a cold front nonetheless, back to the west in Louisiana and Mississippi, and then we have that warm front, which is draped across to the north, and all that warm air is being funneled from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's heading further to the north. So that's what's really going down in the atmosphere, and that's what's helping these storms really fuel up, because we have all this warm, moist air in the atmosphere in that warm sector, and that's really helping, again, these storms get fueled up. So we have temperatures in the upper 70s and the 80s over much of the southeast. If you look at the dew points for today in the Tennessee Valley and parts of Arkansas and Missouri as well, We're dealing with dew points above 70, even reaching up to 75 in some of these areas. So really, really humid and just a muggy atmosphere in general, which is what these storms like to thrive off of. If we look at for the southeast for tomorrow, we have dew points that are going to be all in the 70s for pretty much the entire area, and even a wide chunk of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and a little bit of Florida and Georgia as well have dew points above 75. So all of that coming together, and you can see why we have that threat of storms. Look at these CAPE values, the convective available potential energy in the atmosphere, a signal of how much instability there is, and the higher these numbers are, of course, the more storms that are possible. And you can see that we have very high numbers, especially back through Arkansas, but even through the entire Tennessee Valley. So while you're not seeing in parts of, let's say, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, while you're not seeing those 4,000 to 5,000 amounts in many of those areas, even if you're just at that 2,000, 3,000 level, that would be considered potentially the potential for a outbreak. So even if you're not at that maxed out zone, you don't have to be there in order to actually get some of these thunderstorms. So even if you're just in that area that's around 2,000, 3,000, even up to 4,000, you really want to be paying attention to this, because this is not just going to be impacting the areas that are in that purple shade with the highest amounts. It's going to be impacting those areas that even just have 1,000 or 2,000 CAPE as well. And if we look at for tomorrow, in parts of the southeast, we have CAPE values in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, all above 2,000, and many areas, especially through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and also into Arkansas, have values that are upwards of 3,500 to 4,500. So really, really high amounts of energy, even some areas getting up to 5,000 joules per kilogram, which is really, really high for this time of year. So that is really going to help these storms start to fuel up. Here is the expected amount of rainfall, and this is really going to be concerning as well. You can see these higher values into the Tennessee Valley, but I think if you look at the southeast view, you get a much better idea of what's happening. The highest amounts are through northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, and southern Tennessee. Now, I will caution this and say that this is not all happening at once. This is including what's happening this afternoon, which is maybe another 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, and what's happening tomorrow afternoon, which is where you're going to get most of the rainfall, maybe 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. So if you add that up, that's potentially anywhere from about 4 to 9 inches of rainfall over just 2 days. So that is a lot of rainfall, especially if you get stuck in one of those heavy bands of rainfall that just kind of stalls out over your area. You could easily pick up maybe up to 5 or 6 inches of rainfall. So again, I always like to say this: turn around, don't drown. It's one of the most important things to remember when you're driving through flooded areas. You'd rather just take another road or exit to get to your location than have to go through that flooded roadway, since you can easily get swept away by all that flowing and moving water. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please, everyone, stay safe with all these storms running around, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.